Saying the N-word to a child in a moment of anger is bad. Is it so bad that it warrants the total and permanent destruction of a person's life? And we all know how this script ends. The offender, in a desperate attempt to call off the dogs, tearfully apologizes and begs for mercy, a mercy that they surely will not receive. But that is where the M. Night Shyamalan twist ending comes into play. Because Shiloh Hendricks did not apologize. Instead, she posted a crowdfunding campaign on Give, Send, Go, where she doubled down and defended her actions and asked for help to relocate and get her family to safety. It is, in the end, a net positive that this woman has raised $500,000. I'm glad she has. I hope she raises $1 million.
You just heard self-proclaimed theocratic fascist Matt Walsh of the Daily Wire defend a woman named Shiloh Hendricks who went viral for calling a child a racial slur while she was at Soldiers Field Memorial Park in Rochester, Minnesota. And in said video, she proceeds to call the man filming and confronting her the same racial slur multiple times, as you're going to see.
Call him a child?
The fuck you talking
Did you
about?
call the child the word?
None of your fucking business.
It is my own business. You call him a... Okay, why don't you have the boss to say it right now again?
Fuck you, nigga.
Okay. Alright, that's what you say.
You don't go digging through people's shit, you dumb fuck.
Nobody dig into your shit.
A little fucking kid just did, you dumb
That little kid, you call him a...
Yeah.
The little child?
What if he acts like one, he's gonna...
Are you about to hit him? You chase him here?
He took my son's stuff.
So that gives you the right to call the child, 5-year-old, and the N-word.
If that's what he's gonna act
That's
like.
what you're gonna call him.
That's what he's gonna act like.
You know, that's a hate speech. And you can be recorded for that.
I don't give a shit.
Huh.
Fuck off.
Okay, we'll see about that, what the internet has to say about you.
Yeah. So, she, I guess, thought that it was justified to call a black child who's reportedly neurodivergent a racial slur because he took something from her diaper bag. Lady, he's a child and you're a fucking adult. See, when I was his age, I stole something from the store myself. It was a little keychain of a seal wearing a vest. I liked it. Nobody noticed. But in the event an adult caught me, I suspect that 5-year-old me wouldn't have been treated the same way for obvious reasons. Now, when my mom found out, she scolded me and she explained to me that you can't take things that don't belong to you. And I didn't do it again. Lesson learned. I was 5, maybe 6. Why couldn't this lady, who's a mother herself, explain this to the child in the same way that my mom explained that to me? We know the answer to that question. It's because this woman is a racist piece of shit. That's why. She's a degenerate lowlife who thought that it was appropriate to accost a child because he took something from her fucking bag. What do you even say to that? Now, after that video went viral, she had no remorse. In fact, she launched a Give, Send, Go, which is the right-wing equivalent of GoFundMe, where she not only asks for money to relocate because she says she was doxxed, but she doubles down on the racism, saying, I called the kid out for what he was. This woman is fucking unbelievable. Now, at the time that I record this video, she has managed to raise more than $700,000, I repeat, for calling a kid a racial slur. And she received messages of support from white supremacists and neo-Nazis like this that say, send them back to Africa. Here's your crown, queen. Stand up to human trash. F your double standards. This person posted an anagram of F N-words and got 76 hearts, so that one's pretty popular. Fed up and white. Black is whack. Kiss my white ass. Call them what they are. Second dono to spite them. N-words crashing out. Some of the top donors, you could still see this, unsuccessfully tried to spell out the N-word. White lives matter. Tired of this NBS. This person says we need to come together, but I suspect that they're not talking about all of humanity coming together. Now, even though this reaction isn't necessarily surprising, especially in 2025 America, I've got to say, seeing this reaction to a racist lady accosting a child genuinely made me feel depressed. Nonetheless, Matt Walsh apparently saw that video and had the opposite reaction. He was really encouraged by the response and chose to defend that lady with his full chest on his platform with millions of subscribers. See, other conservatives, including Ben Shapiro, his boss, thought that that behavior was indefensible and at least did a both sides denunciation of people donating to her. But Matt Walsh, however, chose to go in the entirely opposite direction and claims that the success of this woman's Give, Send, Go actually symbolizes a turning point for the country in a really good way, of course.
I will not be joining with some of my conservative friends in wagging my finger at her donors, and I'll explain why. First of all, she does have a legitimate need for the money. The mob is truly trying to get her killed. I don't believe that a woman should have her life threatened for saying a word, even a bad one. Now, you could say freedom of speech, but not freedom from consequences for your speech, all you want. But if losing your livelihood and having your house burned down is a consequence of your speech, then you do not have free speech. Supporting free speech means supporting someone's ability to speak without having their family murdered for it. The point is that the only way to put an end to this routine, the routine where the outrage mob mobilizes and assembles to destroy somebody's life, is to disincentivize the routine. And the only way to disincentivize that behavior is to reward the person who's being targeted. They must know that their attempt to isolate and ostracize somebody will fail, that for every person condemning the targeted person, two more will rally to their defense.
Makes sense. So it's not necessarily that he supports her calling a child a slur. It's about free speech and teaching the cancel culture mob a lesson. Now, Matt Walsh would know a thing or two about that since he's led multiple cancel culture mobs himself. For example, he promoted the Bud Light boycott after they posted an ad with a trans influencer that offended him, and he also boasted about the success of the right-wing mob, writing on Facebook, "The Bud Light boycott was the one time in modern history conservatives staged an effective boycott against a major corporate brand," and he also bragged about how their cancellation of Bud Light was so successful it forced the beer industry to change its advertising standards. And the trans woman at the center of this campaign, who did nothing wrong, by the way, who didn't call a child a slur, received nonstop harassment and death threats for months. But of course, Matt Walsh wasn't concerned about mob violence directed towards her, and he didn't call that cancel culture because, if he's in favor of cancel culture and if conservatives are the ones doing the canceling, it's not cancel culture, it's something else. On top of that, he also used his platform to spread brazen lies about children's hospitals, and days later, a mob materialized.
Today on the Matt Walsh Show, children's hospitals around the country are butchering, mutilating, and sterilizing their young patients. So according to Boston Children's Hospital, literally every toddler who has ever been born or will ever be born is trans. Now, if it seems like they're casting the widest imaginable net in order to catch the most children they can, and put them all on a path to sterilization and butchery before they can even talk? Well, that's because that's exactly what these monsters are doing. And they've done it up until this moment without much resistance from the public. But that has to end. We have to stop making it so easy on them. And that's why I'm in the very early stages of trying to organize a national coordinated effort to fight back against this evil. It's really just a matter of where do we begin. Maybe we begin at Boston Children's Hospital.
Boston Children's Hospital says its staff is being threatened and harassed now after far-right activists on social media posted misinformation, claiming they perform gender-affirming hysterectomy procedures on young girls. The hospital says it's not true. They do not perform those procedures for anyone under the age of 18. Boston Children's Hospital says it is proud, though, to be home to the first pediatric and adolescent transgender health program in the United States. The hospital, though, now is working with law enforcement to try to better protect its staff in the face of these lies.
What a crazy coincidence. Mobs for me, but not thee, I guess, right? Now, to be fair, Matt Walsh would probably argue that it wasn't Boston Children's Hospital's speech that galvanized the mob. Rather, it was a perceived harm that the mob thought the hospital was carrying out that was endangering adolescents. And even if he was knowingly lying about what the hospital was doing, it wasn't their speech that was the issue, because to him, gender-affirming healthcare in and of itself is not speech. Therefore, I guess in his mind, the mob was justified in that instance since free speech wasn't at the heart of the issue. But with that being said, on the March 12th episode of his show, he called bans on conversion therapy an outrageous attack on free speech. So if a discredited practice done to adolescents that causes harm, that's degrading at best and tantamount to torture at worst, is a form of free speech, Does that mean that gender-affirming healthcare is also free speech in his mind? I mean, if I had to guess, I'm assuming that he probably wouldn't be that consistent on this issue, but let's just cut the bullshit. I don't think that Matt Walsh actually cares about free speech. He implies that Shiloh Hendricks doesn't have free speech because a mob is trying to get her killed and wants to burn down her house and murder her family and all this, but his evidence is mean TikToks. But he's trying to do something that is obvious. He's trying to prime his audience to think about this openly racist Karen as the real victim, as opposed to the literal child that she accosted and called the N-word. That kid is the victim, not this fucking grown adult. And in the year of our Lord 2025, I've got to say, conservatives, just drop the fucking act already. We know that you don't care about free speech. It's tiring to hear you talk about free speech after not actually standing up and advocating for your values. You have plenty of opportunities to do that. I mean, Matt Walsh, he critically supports an administration that has detained people for free speech. Literally. I haven't seen him publish any videos or passionate defenses of Mahmoud Khalil or Ramisa Ozturk or Mohsen Madawi, who were detained for criticizing Israel's genocide of Palestinians. If you can't bring yourself to condemn the clearest violation of our First Amendment in modern history, spare me the fucking lectures about free speech, okay? See, here's what I think this is really about to Matt Walsh. I think he's using free speech as a pretense to defend a racist woman because his views align with hers. That's my hunch. That's what I think this is about. Now, you can accuse me of being too uncharitable, but in the next clip, he's going to agree with her that white people actually should be allowed to use racial slurs.
The rules surrounding this word, the moral weight granted to it, the arbitrary guidelines drawn around it, it's all nonsense. It's all indefensible on both moral and intellectual grounds. People are fed up with it. That's what you're seeing in this story. People are just fed up with it. Now, that child, if he's like the average black child in this country, did not hear the N-word for the first time from a white woman at the park last week. Okay? He's no doubt heard it thousands of times. He likely hears it every day. He probably hears it in his own home. Are we supposed to believe that he's heard the word 1,000 times, but it's time 1,001 that really traumatized him? I mean, the idea that the word is a common greeting for one race, but unspeakably evil if uttered by a different race, is laughably ridiculous. The idea that one race can say the word 10,000 times a day and the other race cannot speak the syllables under any circumstance, even if they're just repeating what someone else said or singing along to a rap song, that idea, again, is totally indefensible. If black people want white people to not say the word, then they need to not say it. If you say it, everyone else can say it. Point blank, it's that simple. That's how life works. Deal with it. Telling white people and white people only that they can't combine two specific syllables under any circumstance, it's like telling them they can't touch their head unless someone says Simon Says. Okay? They're not going to play the game forever.
I bet that rant goes hard if you're stupid as fuck. Listen, the good news here is that I think we're finally getting an answer to the question that Matt Walsh posed in his 2024 film titled, Am I a Racist? Congratulations, Matt. I know that you've been struggling with this for a really long time, so I'm happy that you're finally getting some closure. The answer is an unequivocal yes. You are a fucking racist, Matt Walsh. First of all, you have no idea if this kid's parents use that word at all, let alone around him. Second, why do you want to say it so bad? Why do conservatives want to say it so bad? Why is this their main issue? Third, it's not illegal to say it, and you know that. They all know that, but the crux of the issue is that you can't say it without being criticized. You want to be able to say it and not face any backlash or societal repercussions whatsoever, and the fact that that's no longer the case, the fact that white people can't call black people the N-word with impunity, is the issue here. See, Matt Walsh is a multimillionaire who's probably bored out of his mind, so he's got to make up shit that makes him feel like he's oppressed, so that way his pathetic life has more meaning. He's a rich, straight white dude in America, and given what I know about him, the prospect of historically marginalized groups reaching social parity with him is something that probably scares him, because when you're at the tippy top of the social hierarchy, equality for everyone else feels like oppression for you, especially if you think everyone else should be beneath you because you think you're better than everyone else. But to argue that white people should be allowed to say it, he makes the petulant, childlike argument about how white people should be allowed to say it because black people get to say it, so it's only fair if they get to say it too. It's called context, dipshit. For centuries, that word was used as a weapon against black communities who suffered through slavery, Jim Crow, redlining, and so many other crimes against humanity that our government has never atoned for. To this day, black Americans are disproportionately affected by poverty, homelessness, food insecurity, maternal mortality, income inequality, police brutality, racial profiling. They typically have worse health outcomes, not to mention they suffer from diseases at higher rates, such as prostate cancer, breast cancer, diabetes, even COVID-19. And it's not a coincidence that black Americans have so many disadvantages when our institutions were literally built on a foundation of white supremacy. This doesn't mean that white people can't be poor or have problems themselves, but what it does mean is that they're not going to automatically be burdened with additional disadvantages simply because of their race. So if black Americans choose to appropriate a word that was historically used to dehumanize them, I think that's pretty reasonable, don't you? I don't think that people like Matt fucking Walsh get to tell them what is and isn't acceptable for their community, given his malicious ignorance and distance from the issues that materially affect their communities. And a black American using that word as a term of endearment is very, very different than a white racist using that word to dehumanize, especially if they're using that word against a fucking child, Matt. Context matters. And other conservatives are seemingly self-aware enough to understand this, at least on a subconscious level, which is why they didn't openly defend this lady, even if they probably wanted to. Matt Walsh, however, couldn't care less because this is the moment, according to him, to end cancel culture once and for all. Of course, until he needs to weaponize cancel culture for his own political purposes. It is such bullshit. But please, don't think that the reluctance of other conservatives to rush to this lady's defense is some sort of a sign that they're somehow redeemable, because if I had to guess, they probably agree with Matt Walsh, but they're just too afraid to say it. And the reason why I say this is because they're very open about other forms of discrimination that aren't as socially unacceptable, like ableism and Islamophobia. Case in point, Asmongold, the most popular political streamer in all of North America, believe it or not, who doesn't bathe and tweets about rotting dead animals falling through his ceiling, literally, shared some of his political insight that I guess makes him so popular. He says society would instantly and dramatically improve if we took the bottom 5 to 10 most R-word kids out of school and put them in the coal mines instead. Almost all Western cultural problems are derived from adherence to the false god of equality. Brilliant political analysis there. Another example is Republican Congressman Randy Fine, who responded to the only Palestinian American in Congress who tweeted about how Israel is starving Palestinians in Gaza to death with our support, and all she did was call for an arms embargo, but he responded by calling her a Muslim terrorist, and he uses the hashtag #StarveAway to endorse the starvation that Palestinians in Gaza are currently experiencing. He then proceeded to double and triple down, using other hashtags such as Keep On Starving. And the famine in Gaza, by the way, is not theoretical. This is what a sitting member of Congress is publicly supporting: human beings being starved to death with the full support of our government. But I mean, nobody should be surprised, because this is the modern day conservative movement. They are openly genocidal and bigoted to the point where they've structured their entire political identities around their bigotry. They purport to care about free speech so long as they're free to use slurs without consequences. That is literally the extent of their advocacy for free speech. They claim that, they oppose equality because it leads to mediocrity, when in actuality, they're bigoted, and they hate equality because they think that they're better than everyone else, and them not being able to lord over everyone else in society feels like oppression to them. They claim to be Christians and Christian nationalists and theocratic fascists, as is the case with Matt Walsh, who want to impose their religion on all of us, put the 10 Commandments on public property, yet they disregard the commandment about murdering people. Specifically, bring up Palestinians and the genocide that Israel is doing, that our government is supporting, and suddenly they have amnesia. They can't seem to remember what the 10 Commandments said about murdering people. See, conservatives' entire political project is premised on making people's lives as miserable as possible. They are sick, sociopathic, sadistic fucks who thrive on people's pain and misery. It fuels them. They sow division and purposefully antagonize and pit working class people against one another, so that way we're fighting each other instead of the oligarchs robbing us blind. There's a reason, by the way, why the Daily Wire has so many billionaire investors. It's because they are useful tools to the ruling class. This is what modern day conservatism is about. And to be frank, it's what it's always been and is what it always will be. The only difference is the degree to which they allow their masks to slip. And if you consider yourself to be part of this hateful, morally bankrupt, degenerate movement, ask yourself what that says about you.